Oh, all right. Finding a new way of beating my old body up. Trying to finally get a certain range of motion that has always eluded me, and now there's no way around. It's a challenge that unless I beat that, I'm always going to have certain problems with my hips and legs, and being 2/3 leg, I've got to go after that. So something that Antifa, progressives, Democrats, leftists, I beat a bunch of people in a little Willamette Weekly, shut them all down, shut everybody down about Portland saying that all its city workers have to be vaccinated. I shut these fuckers down. They're all, oh yeah, you conspiracy theorists and your fake news. So I dropped it on them. Dropped all the fucking bombs. So this is what people like Antifa need to understand, because you supposedly stand up for the differently abled. So basically disabled people. Well, there's a new form of techno-fascism that all this mRNA stuff is really a part of. See, if you're like me and you really like sci-fi and you really like understanding genetic manipulation and the potentials of it, and also what could go horribly wrong, and all the writers of the 40s and 50s and 60s who wrote about all this, into the 70s, into the 2000s, especially these people who kind of come up with the sci-fi nightmare world, like this series of books called Chung Kuo, Chungkuo, where really, I mean, that guy really has seen a lot of, boy, he really understands. He really understood where the Chinese were going to go way before any of us. But anyway, the first thing I want anybody who's watching this, that you think that all the Trump people are stupid, you think that all the conservatives are these toothless rednecks and ethnicity people who've been fooled into hating their own. Look, just stop this right now. Open up another tab and look up face to gene. Number 2, face. Number 2, gene. You'll find a company. Now, one thing that you'll find is that when you put this in there, one of the searches that should probably come up is face to gene app. I want you to note that. There's an app for it. What face to gene is supposed to do is enable doctors with a simple device like a tablet to take a photo of an infant, so that the information that's on the Azure Cloud net they could document it, and these people's faces, these young people's faces, could be analyzed. It's not genotype, phenotype. It's phenotype analysis to see what kind of genetic problems they have. Now, you might think, oh, you're just making that up, that's fake news. No. The way I found out about this was years and years ago by researching the far right and some of the stuff that the far right was citing that even people in the right wing weren't interested in. I mean, really, like people who were giggling at stuff like the Kex and the stuff that maybe Richard Spencer was saying, or that when he was on a podcast, they would listen to it. Most of these people weren't really interested in all this stuff called genomics, which I really found out about because of Israel using the Human Genome Project and genomics to determine who was really a Jew, because they should have certain kinds of mitochondrial DNA. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, boy, this guy sure says big words for a toothless, stupid, redneck, fooled-out ethnic who doesn't understand he's being bamboozled by the supremists. So the Kohanim Diploid Project is what determined that there were actually African and Yemeni Jews that knew they were Jews, but they were kind of stranded in their part of the world. And so that's why you have these Africans in Israel and Yemenis in Israel. When I visited Israel, there were a bunch of Yemenis on the plane, looking Yemeni as fuck, speaking Yemeni, and So this is also why you then find people from Ethiopia claiming that they're Jews, because they actually have some kind of mitochondrial DNA that shows that they have the Kohanim diploid, and that, say, the African Jews actually had the Kohanim diploid in a concentration so high that it was higher than some people who were Kohanim in Ashkenazi Jewry. And so anyway, and people who don't understand Kohanim, this and that and this, it's then you're really behind. You're way you're operating with crayons. And so I'm going to try to keep this easy by giving you places to look up. Now, the important thing about this really is there were jokes being made about the Antifa mugshots. All of you heard these ugly jokes being made about you, how you were mutants, you were ugly, you look like cartoon characters, you look like, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or the their hood or they hood, it, we, she, them hood of evil mutants, stuff like that. It was pretty mean stuff. And then there's the joke physiognomy check. And so a lot of you think, physiognomy, that's like head measuring, that's pseudoscience like IQ. Well, IQ testing is still being done. IQ testing is done when you sign up to become an engineer at like Amazon.com. When you become an engineer for a lot of firms, they have tests that you have. Some of these are actually, they seem like geometry and math questions, but it turns out that some of these are even trick questions that the answer will be something that you really have to have an ability to do the logic of it and realize, like, they're really, the way of solving this problem is this, and it's an answer that you would never be able to determine, and you would have to do a table of math, and you would have to do a page worth of figuring to try to figure this out otherwise, and you would waste all this time on the test. So, and then also, the bell curve even gets into how early IQ testing for the military, like in the Air Force, that there were black Americans who scored higher than, say, white Americans from the Deep South and Greater Appalachia at that time. Now, as those regions gained more and more higher levels of wealth, and there was basically better water, better medicine, better food, a lot of the Greater Appalachian populations that had scored particularly low caught up. And so there's really the argument that actually if you increase the quality of life, that you actually get higher outcomes as far as length of life and intelligence. And then there's also then, because of the natural competition that comes from market economics, people start breeding. Women try to breed upward out of their class so that they'll have smarter, taller, and more beautiful looking children. Now, why beautiful looking? Because beautiful looking is something that all the dating apps and all of science has long determined depends upon the golden ratio. The closer your face is to the golden ratio, the closer women are to a certain body mass index, and that they can maintain that for their entire lives, and that it actually is more likely, and that their breasts and hips are at a certain ratio to the rest of their body, they will always be more beautiful no matter what ethnicity. If their nose is a certain size in comparison to their eyes, if their head and their jaw, or forehead and jaw, are of a certain proportion to their cheeks, and that they will always be more beautiful. And this will go over continents. That now that these dating apps and all, and that this has been tested in countries that are diverse and in countries that are rather homogenous, that beauty is generally not just universal. You could even test this on babies. You can make up faces, and when you make faces up, the more a face is shifted off of the golden ratio, the more babies won't like it. The closer somebody is to the golden ratio, the more babies will like it. This is why you see Buddhist iconography of different eras, and that at a certain point, there's a Buddhist iconography, say like the Buddhas of that have been destroyed in Afghanistan by the Taliban. When you see those types of Buddhist iconographies, they follow the golden ratio. There's other types that don't. You find these a lot in the Theravada tradition. Like Mahayana, you find that the golden ratio is so closely abided by that you will actually see the graph still left on the paintings that to properly measure out the features of the Buddha, because the Buddha, there's all this stuff in Buddhism about how perfect he looked. And he had this absolutely perfect, he was this kind of perfect being on top of being the Buddha. That was a reason why he was destined for the position, for being the historical Buddha. But when you look at the Theravada position, or the Theravada statuary iconography, you see like the Buddhas are a little more like stretched out in weird ways. They don't look as beautiful as these types that actually come out of the embracing of the golden ratio. That really is something that came out of Alexander the Great, and that influence from Greece. This is why I will always want to say it was actually Stefan Molyneux was one of the people who was really kind of made his name. If I remember correctly, many years ago, before he was ever really famous, he's the one who actually made this argument that Buddhism was far more affected by the Mediterranean world than the other way around. That Christianity was not affected by Buddhism, that it was actually, Buddhism was heavily affected by ideas from the ancient tradition, like the seven sages of Greece kind of era. So pre-Socratic, and then Socratic era, and even Pythagorean era ideas. And this does somewhat hold, being that we have Buddhist iconography in places like Pakistan and Afghanistan, in cave paintings of red-haired Tocharians having discussions with Tibetan sages. And that when you study enough about Buddhism, you even realize like one of the greatest translators in Buddhist history was a Syrian, and was known to be a Syrian. That part of the world knew Rome existed. They all knew that each other existed. It's just there was very few people who came back and forth many times within a lifetime that we have some kind of preserved writings. Oh yeah, Last of the Blackberries. Gotta do it. Oh, give me. No, get in my hand. There we go. Oh yeah, yummy delicious blackberries. Yummy delicious. Oh yeah. Well, who's a lucky ducky? I am. I get the blackberries. Nom nom nom. Nommy nom nom. Gotta have a few more. All right. So, the thing that a lot of you, because you're supposedly advocates of the differently abled, I want you to understand that all this facial recognition technology, who really has access to pictures of your ID? I just want you to think that over for a moment. Or, a lot of you are cheering on, Willamette Weekly's post, you were cheering on the idea that that public sector unions would make you get the jab. Well, who has access to your public sector union information? And now that you know about phase 2 gene and the physiognometric technologies that are actually branch off of the Human Genome Project, how are they going to use that? If you get arrested, is somebody going to have basically a dossier on you saying, look at this reject. Or is Gattaca not only real, but you are beating up common people in the street to enforce the mask mandates, enforce the vaccine mandates, and that, oh, let me make sure you understand something about that. How did I find out about phase 2 gene? I found out about phase 2 gene by stop the video, open up another tab. It's called Microsoft Venture Capital. You'll see it's called M12 Venture Capital. So Microsoft Venture Capital sponsored all of these different firms for the next realm of technology. And this next realm of medicinal technology is called data-driven medicine. Now, where's this data going to come from? Well, this data is going to come from stop the video, open up a tab, and look this up, Microsoft Genomics. Scroll all the way down and you'll find all the different companies that are linked to Microsoft Genomics. Now, when you look further into Microsoft Venture Capital, M12, you're going to end up finding a very interesting thing. The person who oversees it is a former person from Qualcomm, basically the CIA incorporated scientific research firm. Or, well, they fund various forms of scientific research. Why conquer a people when you and all the leaders of the world can just engineer a better population? And once again, stop the video and pause it and look up World Economic Forum genomics and genetics. You'll find a video saying, should we get everybody's genetic profile at birth? Well, they already take, remember, a sample of the umbilical cord. They take the placenta from your mother. So they would have plenty of information on you genetically. They'd have your genetic profile. Is that yours? Does it belong to you? Should they be doing that? Why are you beating up construction workers and mechanics and like line cooks in the street when super major financial capital is actually trying to get your genetic profile, look at pictures of you to see if you're some kind of crazy person, so that they could like log what you do on your phone, where you've been, where photos have been taken of you? Stop the video, open up a tab, NYMI space band. It's not a punk rock band, it's a device. Now when you open this, you're going to find one, the NYMI band, seems like one of those Apple Watch things, but then you're going to see somewhere probably a weird article. And that article has something to do with Defense Advanced Research Projects, DARPA. They hooked a laser up to the NYMI band because the NYMI band exposed to people that your heartbeat is unique, like a thumbprint, and that you could attach a laser mic to the device, and from 200 yards away, you can read who somebody is. You'll have their thumbprint, as unique as a thumbprint. So all the masks don't matter. Do you have a phone on you? Do you think it's really encrypted? Who's encrypting it? Who are these encryptors? Why is it that the FBI, the NSA, the DHS, none of these people can stop you Antifa people? Have you really thought about that? Have you really thought that through? Why is it that they just can't seem to get you? General Flynn is having his fucking money, his credit card shut down. People like Nick Fuentes are being put on no-fly lists, but not you guys, not Antifa. They won't even keep you in jail. You go in and they just let you back out so that you can do your thing. You can anti-fascist people. Notice that every time you start getting totally beat the fuck up, what ends up happening? The police show up. The police show up and they separate the two sides. Typically they'll arrest like a Proud Boy. They don't seem to go after you. Have you really thought about, could these be marching orders? Now also, who are your comrades who are telling you to show up to all this stuff? Like really, like who are they and what's their agenda? You say you're not an organized group, so who are these people telling you to show up to things? Have you really thought about that? They're telling you you should encrypt your phones with this encryption app. It's totally safe, comrade. You're able to organize on Twitter like it's totally cool, bro. Have you really thought about that? So, face to Gene, and then the thing is you'll find all of these firms, they're all on Facebook. You could like them. The genomics industry, all of it's right there. Now, how did I find out about all of this? I found out about it because the people who are the most right-wing were citing various papers about genetics and race and what's called behavioral genetics. If you really want a scary one about that, you look up laws, the 5 laws of behavioral genetics. You won't like it. It's on UN's review. You don't have to like that it's a mixed race Jamaican guy with a mixed race child, who he even had to mock white nationalists. Like, yep, my mixed race ass is having a mixed race child. But he really, one of the most important things he ever posted that I found was particularly interesting is that he was like, do you think you're athletic by choice? Or is it something that's fundamentally genetically determined, being that about 40% of what we call personality is genetically determined? And a lot of you don't know that, but that's his field. This is the field he does research in. You know, when he writes things, when he posts things, these are very, very dense posts. These aren't joke around posts. You have to really do a lot of research on statistics and stuff to actually understand what this guy's writing about. So genomics is something I found out from the most far right wing, but you could look it up on Facebook and find dozens of these firms. Did you know they even existed? I bet you didn't. Now, when you look up Microsoft Genomics, you're going to find a very interesting thing. One of these firms is the firm that developed mRNA injections. They brag about it on their website. You'll be able to click through, one click. So in one click, you're able to find physiognometric app to determine whether your child has Down syndrome and how Down syndrome-y your child is by an app on a phone. And then you go back to the website, one click backwards, you click and you find the actual firm linked to Microsoft Genomics that developed the approved mRNA vaccine. So people who think this is a conspiracy, all you got to do is go to the website, Microsoft Genomics, and you're going to find the future. And that's the future that's being determined for you. You have nothing to say about it. You're going to deal with it. That's data-driven medicine, and that's the future of medicine. And so you don't have to like it. You just have to know that you didn't know about it. And that not knowing about it is totally okay, because I mean, why would you pay attention to something like that? You know, I mean, you have a normal life, you do normal things. You didn't know that there's major international firms like the World Economic Forum that wants a catalog of your genetics. You know, why would you think that anybody would want your genetic map? Genetic mapping is done by the PCR test. That's not an antibody test. So all you got to do, Microsoft Genomics. You just look it up and you'll find like a dozen firms that are now they're going to save your life one day. Don't worry. I mean, that's obviously the idea. By knowing your genetics, and they'll determine whether you're going to get sick young or old or what you're going to get sick from. Don't worry. It's for your own good. It doesn't matter that you don't know about it. It doesn't matter that they're collecting very likely your genetics via PCR testing, because you got to get tested over and over and over again. So, I mean, who's doing that testing? And when you sign off for that testing, are you signing away your intellectual property rights to your genetics, that they get to do what they want with it. And remember now, they're trying to develop an app to find out who's been tested, how many times they've been tested, did they get the shot, how many times did they get the shot. And you're beating people up who are common working people because you're mad at them for not falling in line on all of this and questioning it. You should just know, everybody thinks that when they look at your photos, something's wrong with you. They go, look at these weird, mutated, ugly people. Look at these people who think, look at these men who think that they're women. Look at these women who look all messed up and are crazy and violent. Is there maybe a genetic thing to this? Well, that's what human genomics is about. And they're going to find out, and you're going to like it. You're not going to have a choice because your photo's already out there. You've been advertising what you're into. So remember, I'm going to make sure to edit this so that I'll put into the description below all the links you can hit. Face2Gene, Microsoft Genomics, Microsoft Venture Capital, M12. Now, all kinds of these fascinating things. Oh, and then one of the firms is also called WuXi, WuXi app. That seems to be something that's related to all of this over in the People's Republic of China. But you see, you're smarter than me. I'm just a confused ethnic. All right, later.